Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole. Thank you so much for tuning in here to episode number 63, where we're going to get into what, in my opinion, is probably the scariest thing about taking pharmaceutical drugs. But before we do that, I want to say what's up to all the new listeners, or even if you're a returning listener, thank you for checking out the episode. If you haven't done this yet, do me a huge favor. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, however you do that, on your phone, on your computer. And then while you're at it, go on to iTunes, leave the podcast a 5-star review if you enjoyed the episode, which you undoubtedly will. So if you can, leave a quick review over there on iTunes because it helps me get this podcast out to more people, which is really what it's all about. And then, if you're looking to keep me there up in your phone and social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Holistic A-Hole, Instagram, Holistic A-Hole, Facebook, Holistic A-Hole. These are all you can do this all one word. And then, if you have anything you want to talk about, if you want to shoot me a message on the private, send me an email to holistic.a.hole@gmail.com. If you have anything you want to say, any ideas for episodes, any of that stuff, I just like to keep in touch with everybody. You guys are so cool for listening, and I truly am grateful. So with no further ado, let's talk about what I wanted to talk about today, which is pharmaceutical drugs. And just something that I just kind of thought about, I'm reading this really good book, and it's called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And I think once I'm done reading it, I might do like a book review because it's just so up the alley of this podcast. But he brought up an interesting point, which is something I may have brought up at some point in this podcast on a previous episode. But we're talking about pharmaceutical drugs. And the crazy thing about pharmaceutical drugs, not that they have such a high failure rate, not because people dying from pharmaceutical drugs is one of the leading causes of death in the country. I think it's the number one cause of death in the United States. It's called iatrogenic death. It's basically dying from medical care. More people die in the hospitals, not from their illness, but just because of hospital conditions, than would even make you comfortable to deal with it, to ever want to go to a hospital. And then people die from the medications they're prescribed by their doctors. It's truly, truly heartbreaking. But that's not the scariest thing about pharmaceutical drugs. To me, the scariest thing about pharmaceutical drugs is the fact that when a doctor prescribes you pharmaceutical drugs, there is a very high likely chance that he doesn't really even know what the drug does. There is a really good chance that your doctor's prescribing you something that he just got into his office within a couple months, within a month, within a week. And all he knows about this drug is what he was told by his pharmaceutical rep. That's how pharmaceutical sales work. Pharmaceutical salesmen and women go into doctors' offices, and these people hound them. I mean, this is like selling knives door to door, selling pharmaceuticals to doctors. As a pharmaceutical rep, they're the ones who know more about the drug that they represent than the doctors do. That is fucking bonkers. To think that a person who has maybe a college bachelor's, not even a master's, not a doctorate, no secondary, postgraduate education, none of that shit. A bachelor's. I have a bachelor's. I don't even have a good bachelor's. I have a bachelor's from Arizona State, the water park of universities. And believe me, there's plenty of people I graduated with who became pharmaceutical reps. That's how crazy the pharmaceutical industry is. You have 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds going to doctor's offices with barely a communications degree who probably, was just fucking pinning mothballs on his nipples in his fraternity a week before he stepped into that doctor's office and sold the doctor on whatever drugs the doctor's going to start pushing. And he's the one doing all the educating to the doctor on that medication. This is fucking bonkers. Bonkers. And then the doctor tells you what it does, gives you a diagnosis. They're like, yeah, you got, high blood pressure, you got shaky leg syndrome, you got depression, you got social anxiety disorder, you got whatever, name the disorder that came about within the last 15 years that people are now being diagnosed with. There's a pill for that. And the doctor knows what the pill does only because a fucking pharmaceutical rep educated them on them. Not like a Harvard professor, not like a medical conference, with medical professionals. A pharmaceutical rep who, by the way, only got in there because they bring fucking sandwiches from Blimpies into the doctor's office. Pharmaceutical rep walks in there with a party platter of Blimpie sandwiches and some kind of crazy drug that people take for serious medical issues, and they don't even know what it does. I was never a pharmaceutical rep, so I can't say for sure. I know there's, testimonials out there from people who used to do it who say, like, who are kind of like blowing the whistle on the whole thing. So I don't exactly know, but I haven't read their accounts. So I don't know exactly how, I don't know how exactly it works as far as the pharmaceutical reps themselves learning about the drug. I don't know if they really know about the side effects of the drug, or if they know the side effects, but it's just kind of one of those things they gloss over. See, the crazy thing about pharmaceutical drugs is pharmaceutical drugs are an atomic bomb of chemicals that get released into your body that will do a lot of things. These aren't targeted attacks on some kind of problem. A lot of times, I've definitely talked about this on a previous episode. I think it was recently. I don't know the name of the episode, but you can listen to it. And what I'm saying is these pharmaceutical drugs do a thing. The thing that you're getting the drug for typically is simply the side effect of the drug. That's all it is. A lot of these drugs that people are being prescribed now got discovered because they were side effects of other drugs they were trying to develop. The hair loss pill that I took years ago, that got discovered because the main drug that it comes from was a prostate drug. Old dudes who wake up to pee 9 times a night and have prostate problems took this drug, but then were also growing hair, many of them on their backs. And, the company, who is it? Propecia? Whoever Propecia's owned by, whatever the big company that owns them, they were like, oh, well, look at that. Look at the people who take our prostate drug are also growing hair. So guess what we can do now? We can patent this shit for hair growth, just adjust the formula a little bit, and now we have a whole new product to sell out there. And we didn't have to do shit. We didn't have to discover a new drug. We just took another drug we just took the same drug that just happens to do multiple different things, and now we've got 2 drugs to sell. And believe me, this is a gold mine because there's plenty of dudes who are losing their hair who want that drug. plenty, myself included. That's some scary shit, dude. I don't know if anybody's died from that drug, but I think it could fuck you up. I think it could definitely fuck you up. You know, maybe the hair drug, that's on the lighter side. The more dangerous stuff is the people who take the blood pressure medications, the cholesterol, the blood sugar medications. You know, people take stuff for their breathing. People take stuff for their hearts. People take stuff for their liver, for their kidneys, for their thyroids, for all this shit, man, for their brains, the psychoactive drugs. This is what it does, dude. You know, this is, I mean, is it a coincidence that they find these mass shooters are all on pharmaceutical drugs? You know, what were they taking the pharmaceutical drug for? Probably depression, probably anxiety, you know, but on that same token, that shit turns you into a homicidal fucking killer. Just a psychopath, a straight up freaking psychopath. That's what the drug does. Different versions of these drugs, these psychoactive drugs, you know, what is it? I mean, it just boils down to what? Amphetamines and what's the downer, whatever the downer one is called. They're just variations of those things, you know? Hitler fucking pumped amphetamines into the Nazis, dude. I think I also think the kamikaze pilots in Japanese kamikaze pilots were fucking nose bombing planes into Pearl Harbor. We're also high on, you know, fucking amphetamines. Our own soldiers go over to, you know, we're in Vietnam and we're just taking heroin like candy. And then all of the drugs, all of the psychoactive drugs at least, are now variations of that shit. Of that stuff, dude. So I kind of got off on a tangent there, but I mean that's the frightening thing about these pharmaceuticals, man, is on top of all the terrible shit they do, all the terrible side effects, the main supplier is a person who doesn't even have a medical background. You know, and they're like, oh yeah, give this blood pressure medication to your patients. If they come in and they're talking about this list of symptoms and problems, they're a perfect candidate for this stuff. And doctor's sitting there with a party platter of Blimpie sandwiches and maybe a couple movie tickets, and he's like, you got it, Brandon. Hey, by the way, any movement on those Knicks tickets? This is the scary thing about pharmaceuticals, and the scarier thing about your doctor. He don't know shit about this stuff, man. These doctors didn't go to school. You know, they didn't go to school to learn how to truly heal your problems. They went to school to run a business, to get a degree, to open up a business. And business is open. You got to have vendors. Pharmaceutical reps are your vendors. This is not to say that all doctors are bad or all pharmaceutical reps are bad. A lot of doctors are good, especially, you know, and there's a place for doctors. But if we can just shift if we could just shift the perspective on doctors, or what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I'm trying to get too fancy with some of these words. But if we could just shift when you go to a doctor, to not be a thing that you go, oh my God, I sweat when I eat hot stuff. I better go see the doctor. And then the doctor's like, well, you got high blood pressure. Take this pill. Fuck that. Learn how to lower your blood pressure first. And if you start dying, you're not going to die from sweating from eating too much hot food. You're more likely to die from the medication your doctor's going to give you to help you stop sweating when you eat hot food. But instead, try to lower your blood pressure. Try to lower your sugar, your cholesterol, all that stuff naturally. That's how we should be doing it. But there's no money in doing that shit naturally. There's no money for doctors to tell you to go eat fruits and vegetables. There's no fruits and vegetables rep walking into your doctor's office with a fucking party platter of cucumbers, celery, and sweet potatoes. Like, hey, make sure your patients are making healthy choices with their diets and with their lifestyle. And then the doctor would be like, a month later, the vegetable rep would walk in and be like, how's business? And the doctor would be fucking boarding up the windows, be like, business is done. People got healthy and they stopped coming to me, you asshole. By the way, where's those Knicks tickets you promised me? You promised me those Knicks tickets, you veggie and fruit piece of shit. That's the scary thing, man. That's the scary thing about pharmaceutical drugs. So stay off them as much as you can. I mean, unless you absolutely need them, do everything you can to get out pharmaceutical drugs because you don't know. You just don't know, dude. Iatrogenic death, people dying from their meds and from hospitals. The number one leading cause of death in the country. In the country, man. I know several people who have died because of their medications. Not close to me, but I know them. It's real shit that happens, dude. Real shit. Real shit. But I'll tell you what's not real shit. You, for listening to this podcast all the way to the end. Thank you for doing that. Again, if you enjoyed the episode, go on to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Go on to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on all the socials. And make sure you share this with friends. If you enjoy it, share it with your friends. We're all friends. I think you guys are great. Thank you so much for listening. Keep your ears and eyes open for more from the Holistic A-Hole. And I'll catch y'all on the next podcast.